Welcome in, Loons fans, to another edition of the Matchday Preview. Jonathan Harrison here, joined again by a couple of guests. Manny Lagos, Chief Development Officer. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. Good early afternoon, I guess, today. So
Starting recording a little bit later, and then Andy Greder from the Pioneer Press joining us as well. Andy, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, got plenty to talk about. A big Loons win at the weekend, a 3-1 win over Sporting Kansas City. A big match this weekend with plenty to discuss there. We'll have scouting reports on everybody, including the new guy, Samuel Shashua. We will talk about that in a little bit. But let's start off with Major League Soccer, a look around the league. And plenty of goals galore this weekend. I think the winner should have been the winner for goal of the week, Chicho Arango from half field. I mean, you rarely see that, and not just that the fact that he scored it, but that he hit it right in the middle of the net is an incredible, Manny.
wait, was it not goal of the week?
It wasn't. It was, I think, Chris Durkin won it for his quick turn and fire against Inter Miami that bent around an Inter Miami player and into the back of the net. I don't know how Chicho Arango doesn't win goal of the week.
Yeah, that's that there might be a missed Messi effect in this situation. Just because you're scoring against Messi's team, maybe, because no, it's not even close. That was such a dirty strike and so casual, and I mean,
Chicho just casually just looking off to the left like he's going to pass it somewhere else, and then realizing the Austin keeper's way out of his net, and the net's just there to pick open, and just fires it in from 50 yards out. Incredible.
I'm going to go way back for you guys. When I was playing, there was a player, Marco Echeverri, Bolivian, unbelievable for DC United. Bruce Arena used to coach him. Tony Sana, a local Minnesota guy, played with him. He used to do these no-look long shots like that, casual. And again, you just think he's going to switch the play. And the goalies nowadays, are essentially sweepers, keeper sweepers, and they're really trying to have a high line. They're trying to help, kind of do it. In fact, in our game this weekend, Dane did a great job in that Kansas City game. It looked innocuous, but it was a huge play because they would have had a breakaway. But long story short, you could see Chicho looking casual, like he's just going to switch it normal and just crushes it. I mean, the league definitely got that one. I mean, that's not even debatable. And Andy, if you want to debate me, let's go for it. But I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. Like you said, I was so baller, the fact that he looked to his left, and I think it was estimated at 62 yards out, and just smashed it. It was so nonchalant to then have such a fabulous hit. And also just the fact that he's, I think, right there with Messi for the MVP. I know we were going to probably talk about that, but I mean, I think that kind of goal and kind of what he's done on a weekly basis just shows how special of a season he is, and kind of how he deserves to be in that conversation with Messi when it comes to MVP.
Yeah, Chicho scoring, getting another hat trick this weekend, kind of leads right into that conversation, Andy. Is he the front runner for MVP? I know Messi's in the league, and coming into the year, he's been the de facto leader in that clubhouse for the MVP race, and he's put in the goals and assists this year. But Chicho Arango, having himself a season, that's at 16 goals already on this season. It's an incredible season for Chicho. I think for me, he deserves to be the front runner for MVP, even though Lionel Messi is putting up a heck of a season, Manny.
Yeah, I don't know if I can quite go there. Again, and I'm biased, obviously. We're all fans, and we're talking about the greatest player in the history of the game, who's putting up some great numbers in MLS, and also, create a new identity for Miami as being a powerhouse in the East. So for me, I probably still have Messi kind of in the front, but it might also be because the season's not, it's at the halfway point essentially, or a little bit before. So it doesn't take away from what Real Salt Lake's doing in their front three, and just how Chicho's strengths are coming out, because of our Colombian guy, Gomez. No,
Andres Gomez and Anderson
Andres
Julio.
Gomez is being unbelievable, and so you could say that Gomez is helping create the goals for Chicho. You could say the other way around. Chicho's helping, bring this Colombian kid into the fold and becoming, a call up for the national team. So super close. I mean, I think it's just unbelievable that we're talking about in the same kind of together. And considering how well Messi has played and what he's done, and we're having a good debate about whether Chicho should be MVP over him is unbelievable. It's just a credit to him, and it's also a credit to Real Salt Lake. They are just week in and week out now, playing with such consistency, structured, organized offensively, and just, offensively never out of a game. Down 3-0 a couple weeks ago, 3-3. Down 1-0 late, 1-1. Now up 3-4-0 30 minutes into a game. That's some dominance, and that's some telling me that they potentially do have an MVP player on their team.
Yeah, best attack and best defense in the Western Conference, 39 goals scored, only 19 allowed this season. Andy, is it going to be hard for anybody else but Lionel Messi to win that award this season?
I think so, just given his popularity, given his notoriety, given how everybody focuses all the time on Inter Miami. I think it'll be difficult to say it's not going to be him. Just looking at the raw numbers, Messi has 22 combined goals and assists in just over 1,000 minutes, and Arango has 20 in over 1,400 minutes. So he's averaging, I think, what is that, 0.7 more goals and assists per 90 minutes. So he's producing at a higher level, but to Arango's credit, he's on the field a lot more. And I feel like he's got, I think he's got good players around him, but obviously Messi has kind of the legends surrounding him. So I think, Arango maybe gets the bump for kind of raising the level of guys around him, where Messi is kind of surrounded by stars as well.
Yeah, I mean, at least this is a legitimate debate. Like I said, the Ballon d'Or for Messi a couple years ago was, probably a little bit more like, oh, maybe not, probably shouldn't have had it that year. But Messi is coming to this league and really performed really well and is hungry. So it's a fair debate, which I like. It's not like, oh, Messi's way behind, but he should win. No, he's legitimately playing really well as well.
Manny, yeah. One question I have for you is there was a PK that Arango took in that game on Saturday and kind of hesitated when he was going up in the motion. That always seems to bother me for some reason. I always feel like the taker has such an advantage already that I feel like there needs to be a continuous motion once you go towards the ball. Do you have any comments on that, or do you not mind it, or what?
No, I think you're right. I mean, I think it's an interesting one because it just shows how good Arango is right now and how everything slows down for him when he's doing things. Because if a goalie stays, and you saw Dane do it against Colorado and stays big, sometimes that type of movement panics the guy because he really wants an extra second for the goalie to start to move, and then he can slowly just kind of slide it to one way or the other. So, goalies sometimes, if they're brave enough, can just hold an extra second. They can make Arango be a little bit more nervous. Now he has to really recalibrate about what he's going to do, how he's going to hit the ball soft or hard. I actually, this is a Manny Lagos. I actually like the idea of if the referee blows the whistle, the goalie can move right away, like run out to the ball even. And so what it would do is I think the guys would either have to take it quicker, but in some ways, if the goalie started to run out to the ball and they weren't set, it's easier for the guy to score. So I actually, I think to take away all that kind of shenanigans, just when the ref blows it, free to do what you want.
Yeah. Kind of brings back some shades of the MLS shootout era a little bit there.
I mean, it's still, to this day, there's some good debates about whether that's a better way to finish a game or finish a World Cup, by the way, as opposed to the shootout or penalty kicks.
I saw some Instagram reels about old shootouts just kind of in my feed and just caught watching as many as I could yesterday. So
it was tough. It's a lot harder. Definitely the goalie has a much better chance than a penalty kick.
Those are certainly really fun to watch. Going back and watching those old shootouts, you kind of miss that that's not part of the league. I get why it's not, and the criticisms that was heaped upon it for having those, but I really like that innovation. And I know it's not a very popular take among soccer fans, but it was fun to watch for sure.
Yeah, there's some Europeans though, like Rodney Marsh is an old school player that played in England, played back in the 70s, big time forward. He loved it. So I think it's a much more debatable than Americans realize. The problem is we sometimes tend to Americanize too many things. I think that's a fair one to say, hey, that might potentially be an improvement on the game.
Do you think it would have been looked upon a little bit differently if we hadn't come out of the gate with it right away in Major League Soccer, if we kind of brought it in a little bit later instead of a first-year thing and when Major League Soccer came about? that was one of the first rules that came about, was that change. You think it would have been
Yeah,
looked
and
upon
I
differently?
think we've gotten better at understanding the power structure of maybe not just throwing new rules ourselves, but coordinating and working with FIFA, with IFAB, and really then I think we've learned that instead of just throwing our American way of doing things, but actually discussing with them and in a global way to improve the game, then it can be presented in a way that like it might be coming from the bigger power structure of soccer, which is in Europe. And so they're more involved in it, and it's more kind of I think that's when it's much more well received versus us just throwing new rules at them and saying we're good at sports and here do it this way.
I'm also in for bringing goalie wars back, just all the time. Have goalie wars,
Love
whatever.
it, love it.
Goalie
And
wars is so fun to watch.
I like
All
the
right.
full volleys, by the way, not just the saves.
Yes, absolutely. All right.
Yeah.
So other games of note, Manny, I know you and I were excited for some Friday night soccer last week, and boy, did it deliver. 1-1 until the 79th minute. Maxi Morales and Alonso Martinez just continue New York City on their 5-match winning streak, a 5-1 win for New York City. Alonso Martinez a hat trick in this one. This one absolutely delivered for some Friday night soccer.
It did. It did. I'm still going to be a little bit crabby about the venue, and I would like a soccer venue for these types of games. It's still a little bit hard on the eye to watch in this baseball stadium, but they have a new stadium coming, and they're going to have one of the best stadiums in the country right next to the baseball stadium, right off the subway line, 15-minute ride from Manhattan. So they will be, one of the kind of examples of the growth of MLS once that happens. And they are outstanding right now. Their goalkeeper is playing through the roof. I think he probably has the best numbers in the league. And they just have found a nice mixture of balance throughout their roster and winning games. So that was a really comprehensive win against a desperate team that's still trying to find their identity. And sometimes those games can go hard, particularly on a field like where they play at home, where I don't think the home field advantage is quite as much. They just pour through them. I would say, and to see Max Morales come in and kind of even elevate them at the end of the game, it feels like this NYCFC team has turned a corner from the level they've been the last couple of years.
Yeah, they've been on fire lately. I think it's 8 of their last 9 that they've won. They've been excellent to watch, Andy.
Yeah, it might be the best example of the volatility of MLS, right? I think they've won one of their first 7, and like you said, have won 8 of their last 9. So it just kind of shows that Nick Cushing goes from, maybe one of the top guys on the hot seat to seeing other guys exit before him. It just shows, how quickly things can change in this league.
Yeah, absolutely. Another example of that, LA Galaxy, a 2-1 loss, a shock 2-1 loss to Chicago Fire this weekend. Brian Gutierrez with the winner, a long-range shot, both posts and goes in. Kuiper scores Chicago's first. Chicago kind of turned it around, but LA Galaxy, it looked like they had jumped Minnesota in the standings there for a little bit, and there's some positivity being built off of the back of 2 wins against the Dynamo and FC Dallas. But this win, or this loss against the Fire, kind of changes that tune, doesn't it, Manny?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Jonathan, you and I have been on the podcast talking about the Galaxy still, I think, are kind of finding their balance of offense and defense. And certainly in that game, they got an early lead. And I still think they're kind of giving up a lot of goals.
Mm-hmm.
And a team who's really good defensively, they get an early lead like they did. You'd think they'd just like kind of now take over a team like Chicago that's still getting nervous about how they're going to get points at home and then going down early. But I just thought, Chicago hung in there, and it was a really bad giveaway for that second goal. And I love the young kid Gutierrez. He is such a great talent, and his composure to finish that was outstanding. But that really started with some just kind of soft habits defensively by the Galaxy to not see that game out to get a point or 3 points.
Yeah, it's now just 2 wins in their last 8 matches for the Galaxy, and their defensive questionable defense continues to hamper them this season, Andy.
It does. And I thought maybe the biggest takeaway from this game for me was the fact that they, said, Shaqiri, you can go ahead and go on international duty before the game. I think that was pretty telling. It's kind of about where they are with their designated player. That was really surprising for me to see that. I think that's kind of what I take most out of this game. Chicago really needs something to kind of get going, and Brian Gutierrez having the full opportunity to show his skills like Manny talked about, I think is exciting to see. How old is he? Is he 20, 21, something like that?
Yeah, very young still. Very, very young. And I think they could sell him, but I also think, they want to see what he does for them and if they can help them kind of get out of this massive multi-year funk that one of the bigger markets in the league is in. And he's a great young talent. So it'll be really interesting. Andy, you're so spot on about the Shakir stuff. Just so you know,
Yeah.
$8 million player. Pretty much everybody stayed up until they had to leave the international break. It is clear there's a lot of tension with that situation, and astute comment of the fact that they are like wanting him not to be around when they need to get points at home is very telling.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that brings us to our conversations on Minnesota, recapping
Hey, Jonathan, real quick.
Yes. Yeah.
I just you kind of sent out a note about some other goals of the weekend. The Carlos Gil one, great. That was like right up there, one of the most skilled number 10s in the league, probably even the history of the league. Standard, awesome touches, extra hesitation goal. You had this John Tolkien goal in there as a goal of the week. And I don't mind if you or Andy answer. Could you tell me why you think in any way, shape, or form that should be goal of the week?
I didn't put that one in there. I think that one was one of our producers, Kyle Hayward. He put that one in there. I have not seen that one, unfortunately, so I can't defend that one.
It's a nice goal. It's a nice goal. It's let's say goal of the week. It says goals galore as the heading. So
got it. I just thought that was really, really poor goalkeeping, and obviously
Andy coming out with some heat today.
Yeah, Orlando has given up some soft goals. He's kind of this like up and down goalie, and I don't know. I thought it was right in the middle of the goal. It got his hand to it, kind of helped it go in. So, anyways, that's just my, throwing that out there that I thought that one was a little bit to me below average in terms of a high level goal. But yeah.
I wonder if John Tolkien and Emil Forsberg kind of share bleach in the dressing room. They're both standing behind that free kick. It's like, which bleach blind guy is going to take this one? You don't really know which is which.
It seems like every year this time of the year, because Ricky Pooch did his hair. Actually, I remember back in the day when I played like this is like the bleaching of the hair time for the players. Where like in part of the season, like I'm going to change my hair color. I'm going to bleach this out. It feels like there's tons of players that do that.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Joseph Rosales do that a couple weeks ago too? Yeah. Then he went back before he had to go.
What's the most extreme thing you ever did, Manny?
Come on, I'm old school. Oh my gosh. I think I was so old school that I think the biggest one for me would be, this is gonna be boring. I would make my shoes all black again. So I would take a marker and just color them black. And I was with Nike for a long time, and they got so mad at me because I would blacken out the swoosh because I love these old black Lotto Perlas I had when I was growing up, or my even my Copas I'd sometimes black out. So that's it for me, buddy. I was pretty boring when it came to a look. So sometimes I would wear my socks down a little bit, lower my shin guard, show off my calves a little bit, maybe that. My long legs.
Like it. I like it.
All right, Andy, you throw out the question. What's the craziest hairstyle you've gone or clothing choice you've gone with?
Oh man, I used to have shoulder length hair. It used to flow out of my football helmet back.
There you go.
That was probably the biggest thing that I did when I went to South America for about 8 months, 15 years ago now, and actually that's when I fell in love with soccer, and I didn't shave the entire time, so I had a very Harry the Henderson neck beard going on. It was, oh man, I'm shocked my girlfriend at the time was staying with me through that time.
I think for me, it had to be back in elementary school. Had a full-on mullet and racing stripes on the side because why not? And now my oldest kid, 8 years old, he's like, I want that haircut. So he's got the full-on mullet. Hasn't gone racing stripes yet. I haven't convinced him to do the cuts on the side, but he's gone full-on mullet for some reason.
I think we produce some of the best mullets in the state by far. Particularly our hockey culture helps.
Yes, absolutely.
Sure.
It definitely kind of flows into the soccer kids as well here, which is awesome.
Yeah. All right. So now onto the 3-1 win for Minnesota against Sporting Kansas City. Let's get some general thoughts here. Start off with that. I thought for me, this was one of the more complete performances we've seen from this club. And I said this to Dan on the broadcast in the post-game show. This felt very routine, Manny, in the way that they went about this win. It didn't feel like they had to play too many risky plays. It just felt very matter of fact in the way they went about this 3-1 win on Saturday.
Yeah, I like that you said matter of fact. I mean, I think I think the game itself was a stalemate to start, really. I think both teams, third games a week, and sometimes that creates a lot of mistakes or creates a tempo that's frantic. I thought the beginning of the game, you had lineup changes on both sides. I thought it was kind of interesting because you're right, it was a matter of fact. But I think sometimes, I talked to some fans who maybe or some friends who aren't like big soccer people. They say, "Oh, it was a little bit slow." And I was like, "Yeah," and I think Eric wanted it that way. I don't think he wanted a lot of drama, so the team and the roster we had could kind of get into the game and get going. And I felt like sometimes fans are like, "I want action right away," and I think this was really important that we kind of got settled. We had a different lineup, and I think it was the first game. Correct me if I'm wrong, where we got up 3-0 at home. Which makes it feel good. We hadn't had a game where we got a good lead, decent few minutes in the second half where we were like, okay, this should be our night. So to me, the goal really kind of brought the game to life. And fortunately, and reality of how well we're playing, it brought it to life for only one team, which was us. It really got us excited about really playing well for 90 minutes. And that first 20 or 30 was more kind of building into it. And then after we scored, like I said, our defensive work rate and the chances they created was outstanding. I mean, they really did not have a sniff until Johnny Russell kind of, had a late goal to kind of a consolation goal.
Andy?
I think the big thing that stood out to me were the little things that led up to the goals. I think, when you get Taney scoring and Robin scoring, again, it's kind of, you look for kind of other things kind of beyond, where the goals came from. And I thought Sangbin's pressing action to force that turnover that then went to DJ to Bongi into Tanny for the header was instrumental in getting that started. I felt like Devin Padelford's long throw in to set up Tanny for the cross to Robin, and then I thought Kervin Arriaga's very long sprinting run to overlap. I think it was on Sangbin and ball goes in and it clears out right to where Kervin is, kind of puts himself in a very advantageous spot of just kind of the little things that kind of go into winning games. And I asked Eric Ramsey about it afterwards, and he said that during the week he'll during video sessions find ways to praise players. It's not always about kind of correcting things, so he'll always kind of pinpoint the little things that he feels that are winning plays before goals. And Tanny also said that Eric is probably the most detail oriented coach he's ever played for, and kind of those examples and kind of Eric's way of coaching during the week, I think was probably my biggest takeaway.
Nice, Andy. I will say, we're talking about little things. I'm going to bring up a little miss there because it was that first goal. A couple things happening. Harvey had won a couple good balls in bad spots. I think he won the ball, and it's actually Michael Boxall, and it wasn't his first action going forward. I think it was maybe his second or third one. Where again, we don't have Robbo loaded. We're kind of still thinking where are the goals going to come from? Are the creative moments? And his physicality, I think, got in there and passed the ball to DJ in a good spot in the defensive third. Then went to Bongi, and Bongi had the great cross in the header. And I think, the defending by the KC player was pretty soft, if I'm being honest. But Bongi's cross and Tanny's header were outstanding. But to your point, there's a little thing there where Boxy was really a leader in terms of his mentality was a little bit more offensive and saying, hey, let's get the tempo going, guys. That first 20 minutes was kind of a chess match of both sides not really being super aggressive in terms of creating chances.
Boxy's gotten forward a lot lately, a lot more than we're used to seeing him get forward. I know during the broadcast when he was called offside once, Dan and I were joking about how many times he's been called offside this season. I think that was his third time this season, which is the most since he's joined the club, and that makes it 6 all time. But he's really, that back line's got comfortable in their communication, it seems like, and it's allowed Boxy the freedom to get forward. We saw him on the overlapping run, I believe, against Portland a couple weeks ago, where Dan said Michael Boxall on the overlap, and we both kind of just looked at each other like, did we really just mention Michael Boxall on the overlap? And it's really kind of brought forth a new element with this team, Manny, and how that center back trio plays together.
I love that you brought that up, and Andy even brought up the third goal of Arriaga, not the finish, which was the technique was unbelievable and outstanding, but the fact that he did a 50-yard overlap with Sang, and it was such a long overlap, Sang didn't even see him, which is fine. And then, the clearance comes to him for the goal. I think that threesome center back is, I would argue potentially tops in the league. The three of them have unique skill sets and they have qualities that complement each other. that then allows, one of them to get forward, and then you've got, your wing backs, one of the other side can tuck in. So you maybe always have 3+1 back. Certainly Will tends to say more than anybody else in center midfield. He's been hungry to be busy all over the field, but also be in good defensive positions. So between Tapias, Boxall, and Curvin, you're right. We're just talking about 2 center backs and 2 plays that led to 2 of the 3 goals. I mean, that's just great stuff.
Yeah, it's certainly been fun to watch that back line develop together throughout the season. I liked Eric Ramsey's comments after the match, said I was really pleased with the completeness of the performance. Aside from the way in which we finished the game, there are obvious frustrations there, but I would say this is as close to a complete performance as I think we had, in the sense that it justifies a lot of what he's been talking about throughout the season. And this was really a very complete performance against a team that is usually tend to put up good matches and good fights against Minnesota. Obviously got a little chippy at the end, but that's not the kind of fight I am talking about. But Minnesota really it feels like Sporting Kansas City didn't really have many chances to threaten Minnesota on the evening because of the way they played. And a lot of that comes down to how, I think for me, how Will Trapp and Carlos Harvey matched up in that midfield. Those two were excellent on the afternoon or on the evening. And I thought that was a good switch up for that midfield of having Harvey in there to start, even though Hassani Dotson is coming back from injury. But it gives the Loons, once again, more versatility in the players that they can utilize throughout the season. Having Carlos Harvey develop into regular minutes eater for this club throughout the season, Manny.
Yeah. Will was very busy early, did well. Carlos, I thought, played himself in the game and sneakily won balls in good spots as the game went on. That really helped us get numbers forward, get chances. He's got a nice smoothness to his game in terms of, he's not looking like he's running fast, but he's getting into physical battles, and he's winning really good battles and keeping the ball in good spots. So always when you kind of a two midfield and you're playing that well, it's great. Like I said, I think it was unique in that I was expecting a little more physicality out of Kansas City at some elements of the game, and I just didn't see it. When we went up 1-0, the response was light, and I thought that just showed the confidence that we were playing with.
Yeah, Andy?
Yeah, I thought, Carlos Harvey has, gotten his fitness in the right spot. I think that was lacking at the beginning of the year. So it's nice to see him kind of be able to get fit and be able to contribute to the team. I think with a 3-man back line and 2 kind of double pivot 6s, I'd ideally like somebody that's a little bit more of an 8 that can push forward a little bit more, but I felt like it worked in this game. Just one thing on Michael Boxall, to go back to that. We haven't seen him get this far forward since they used to play against San Jose in the man marking. And Matias Almeida probably still has nightmares over the fact of Michael Boxall marauding down the midfield. But yeah, it's
that was Moses. It's parting of the sea.
Yes.
It's just the parting of the sea run.
Yeah. I mean, a comment on Kansas City. I mean, they just look kind of lifeless, don't they? I mean,
yeah,
they're just bringing their, most prominent attacking players off the bench. And by the time those guys got in the game, it was already pretty much decided, right? Johnny Russell got a goal back, but Alan Pulido, Daniel Salloi kind of didn't create a whole lot in the game. And kind of when your kind of back is against the wall and you haven't won in, was it 9 games at that point or something along those lines, I'm surprised that those guys weren't more prominently in the lineup.
Yeah, bringing those guys on late in that match and not having them start, I believe, for a second game in a row for those guys, was an interesting call. I know they are in the midst of a big losing streak, and Peter Vermees is just trying to find something that works to get them kickstarted. But even when they brought him on, Andy, as you said, they didn't seem to get involved that much. I thought Daniel Salloi was actually kind of poor on the evening. Some of his crosses on that left side, from that left side, didn't really connect. There was one chance where Alan Pulido, late in the match, had made a nice diagonal run to get in front of the Loons defenders, and Shallowy's cross just goes well over him onto the far post, and there's just no one there. So I don't know. Some of the guys that you would expect to put on good performances, man, he just didn't on the evening for Kansas City.
No, and I mean, again, there's probably a few coaches in the league that you've got to take a pause. And obviously, Peter Vermees in Kansas City has been through this before. Peter has dealt with a lot of adversity, and last year he clearly did, and really had them have a huge turnaround to make the playoffs. So it's going to be a fascinating couple months for Peter and his staff in terms of, how do they get out of this? I guess it would be 10-game winless streak now and start to get going. And again, I I was so proud of our guys because I thought Eric's quote is exactly right. It was such a workmanlike performance. I thought Dane had a great workmanlike performance. Didn't have to do a lot. I did highlight the one play in the first half. His comfort level of reading as a last kind of sweeper keeper, and they had one great ball over the top that in the end, probably for the most of the fans look innocuous. That was one of the plays of the games for me because it didn't even allow like a moment of like nervousness by our team, or that we weren't gonna start to kind of take over the game and dominate. So it really was a complete performance, and we should take a little bit of credit for that. Also, we were playing against a team that was down, and we kept them down. So that's a really great effort by our guys. Again, for the first time at Allianz this year, where I felt like it was that kind of performance when you're up 3-0. You never want to breathe, but I think the fans had a great night. Obviously, the weather was great as well. So just to you, Andy, I gotta there's two players I do kind of want to highlight in terms of just had a little something extra this night in terms of how well they've been playing for the team this year, and the excitement I think they're bringing to the crowd and the team. And Joseph, again, with a performance that is, I would say, top kind of tier type of performance in our league, of top players in the league. And then also Curvin, not just the goal. He is really built into these two Hondurans are, they were good last year, but they're playing some of the best in their positions in the entire league.
Yeah, absolutely. There were a couple of moments that Joe had in midfield. I think he took a pass from Will about 50 minutes in and kind of hit a ball to himself, and then outran the KC, went right back to the end line, and then served in a cross that was pretty good to Tanny, and kind of had another kind of boss moment in midfield about 10 minutes later. He just feels very, very comfortable. Feels like a natural spot for him to be at a wing back spot. And yeah, I agree. He's been playing phenomenally well. And I think Curvin also kind of obviously got a goal, but just kind of, he just feels very confident as well. And those two guys, is their kind of, buddy comedy that we see so often from those guys. It was funny. I think it was it the KC game, or no, excuse me, the Colorado game, where they showed in the locker room and those two guys were sitting next to each other and Curvin had his hand on Joseph's leg. It just seemed like those guys were just inseparable. And obviously I think Joe especially has been just playing phenomenally well.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a Vegas gambling on this or not, but like I would say both those guys should be our top two most likely to get yellow cards in a game. Okay. They can get heated very quickly. Did Arriaga get one, Jonathan, at the end there?
I can't remember if Arriaga did, but I know
Joe definitely
Rosales
got
did.
one because he's suspended when he gets back.
Yeah. That's a tough
He
one.
definitely got one.
Arriaga did not get one.
No. Okay.
Wasn't he jawing with Johnny Russell though?
Yeah, right at the end there, and then Boxy got involved, and it was. Yeah.
And then the ref quickly ended the game after that, knowing that
and I think our players did a good job of getting Curvin out of there. I think that's a nice thing. We're getting to know Curvin more, and again, Russell's one of those great guys of seeing weaknesses in guys, and he was trying to start something with Curvin because he knows Curvin's going to go off. And I think if I remember correctly, I think our guys got over there quickly to pull Curvin out, and I think Boxall took a lot of that tension away, but then added his own, to be honest, into Johnny. So it was a funny moment.
Did you guys see the Peter Vermees quote that got traction from this game?
No.
He said,
no.
Other than the 3 goals, a lot of good stuff.
Okay.
So
that's 2 games in a row with some good sound bites. So
no. Not sure what good
obviously
stuff.
The last time he was here, it was the iPad meme game. So he's had a couple of gems.
Okay.
He's good for a number of those throughout the season, though. I mean, he's been around long enough that, as we're talking about guys who stood out, Tenny Oluwaseyi scoring and assisting on the evening, gets the Canadian call-up. Congrats to him. Awesome moment for him. Well-deserved because he's been putting in excellent performances, but his positioning on Saturday was excellent. His positioning on the goal to kind of use his body nicely to give himself some space from Jake Davis on that header. And then positioning on the long throw in from Padelford to get around, I believe it was Rosero, and just keep him on his back the entire time and be able to spot Robin Lod breaking in late to the box. Once again, just another all-around great performance from Tanny, and well-deserved for him getting called up to Canada, Manny.
Yeah, first of all, awesome that he got called up. Super excited for him. Tanny and Load is really where you want to go with that next level. We didn't talk about the second goal, but just a great long throw by Devin, who, by the way, we didn't mention as well. Maybe a little slower start, but really played himself into the game, and really as the game went on, got stronger and stronger. And I thought he did a great job against Johnny Russell for the minute that Johnny was in there. And just the way that Tanny turned, the speed, the touches to like get to a point where the defense doesn't know he's going to do. And then we've got a player like Robin Lode that really sees the game, understands the game, understands what it means to arrive late in the box, and then also be a quality finisher. So those two scoring goals and assists for fun for us is really fun to watch. I mean, it is really been a great tandem of creativity between those two.
Yeah, Tanny got called up, I think it was on Monday. So on Saturday, he wasn't part of the mix for these friendlies. So I asked him in the locker room after the game about kind of where he felt like he was mentally, given the fact that he wasn't going away with the national team. And he said that he's had his sights set on making the World Cup team in 2026. And I kind of asked him for a little bit of context on that. How long has that been your goal? And he said he's been thinking about that since he was 18. So I think that was pretty interesting to hear him say that. And kind of I asked him about kind of where he was, like I said, with that perspective. And he said, I'm looking at the big picture of it. And I just think he's 23, 24, but I think he's got much more maturity in the fact that he's kind of scoring these goals. I don't think it's gone to his head. And I think he's been pretty even keel when he's been able to produce like he has.
Yeah, we talked to him before the match and we asked him, it was the first time we'd had him on the broadcast. So we were just trying to catch up with him on everything that's gone on this season. He said the loan last year was probably the best thing that's ever happened to him, and just being able to build that confidence. And I think that's a lot of what we've seen this year from a lot of these guys who have turned into starters in positions that maybe you wouldn't have expected, Manny, is just the amount of confidence they are playing with. And yes, I know that does come with the wins, but overall, performance in, performance out, you just see the confidence from these guys, from Songbin Jong, from Robin Lod, from Tenny Oluwaseyi, Kervin Arriaga, Josip Rosales, these guys playing in spots that you normally wouldn't predict or see, and getting the minutes that you didn't expect them to get starting the season. And they're just playing with so much confidence this season.
Yeah, and I think it's the little things, and I think Andy talked about it. Maybe we can talk with Eric as we segue into the Dallas match this weekend and the challenge and diversity he has. But even Sangbin, kind of being switched over pretty early because of the injuries we had and the lineup structure to this wing back role. When you have a lead, you're going to have to play defense, and him just kind of embracing that and playing really well. He drew that one foul. We had to recover defensively correctly. He had to get back in front, I think, shallowly. So he drew the foul and didn't cause a PK. And his work rate, and again, I think I'm alluding to him, I'm guessing that put a picture in Eric's head that might be a good position as we try to navigate how the team's going to look this weekend. It's just outstanding. Like you said, these guys embracing roles and embracing kind of not only the system, but the habits that you need to kind of be a group to do well, whatever the system is so impressive. And again, I think that alludes to Andy talking about the little things that Eric is really trying to bring out. The strengths in guys, both individually and the group as a collective, has just been outstanding. You can see it. You can see as we, in games are changing systems, changing lineups. It's just really exciting. And like I said, I kind of throwing out the segue. That's why I'm so excited this weekend. Even though there's adversity, I'm kind of frustrated that we're going to be missing so many starters. But gosh, it's going to be exciting to see a lot of these guys get an opportunity based on what we've seen out of the opportunities all these guys are getting and playing so well in not different positions, but asking to step in and be there for the team first and foremost.
Just because the Loons are away doesn't mean you have to watch the match from home. With Loons Watch Spots presented by Coors Light, you can find a piece of that Allianz Field atmosphere at some of your favorite Twin Cities locations. Check out the full list of locations and upcoming watch parties at MNUFC.com/Loons Watch Spots. Yeah, I think talking about Song playing the right wing back spot isn't getting enough recognition, because it seemed like when Sporting Kansas City made the switch and had Johnny Russell come out, they put him on that left side to try and run at a guy who normally isn't going to play that spot. And Songbin Jung really stood up, really stood tall, and really kept Johnny Russell silent for a majority of that part of the match, until they made the substitutions, brought on Polito and Shalloway, and sent Johnny Russell back to the his normal right-hand side. So, and even there, Devin Padelford did such a good job, as you said earlier on, Manny, of shutting him down, that Johnny Russell's lone goal from the match had to come from essentially the midfield. He had to track back into the midfield and drive with the ball forward. And Loons players, probably not wanting to take a yellow card that late in the match, really not closing him down. And Johnny Russell striking an excellent shot. This is the second game in a row that the Loons have had just an incredible goal scored against them. But Johnny Russell not really having as much impact on the wings on Saturday, because of the nice play from Songbin Jung, from DJ Taylor, from Devin Padelford. Excellent performances from those guys on the wings, Manny.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Andy speak to it. I chuckle because we gave the ball away in a bad spot, and the soccer gods still want Johnny Russell to do well against us somehow, because he hasn't been that great of run of form. Next thing you know, 3-0 becomes 3-1, and we give up a late goal for Johnny Russell to continue to kind of have the folklore against us. Is probably cruelty of the soccer gods, but it was late enough. That was a great astute point by you. I actually think it was good discipline by our guys not to get a yellow card in that situation. We're coming to that time of the year where Andy just mentioned Joseph's going to be out. I actually thought it was good discipline to not take the foul there, and see the game out at 3-1, and it took a great shot to really to score as well. So, Andy, any funny stuff about Johnny in your world? Any stats we should know about us against him?
I don't have him in front of me, but you're right, Manny. It feels like every single game, regardless of the circumstances, he gets on the score sheet, and sometimes it's killer. And thankfully for Minnesota, it was just ruin the clean sheet on Saturday. One thing for you, Manny, how was happy birthday to your dad?
Yeah,
what was it like for him to kind of be the coin toss and kind of be a part of things on Saturday?
Thank you for that question. We talk about these moments where we have Allianz. It seems like we talk about them all the time, but you're pitching yourself. First of all, gorgeous night. My dad was born June 1st, 1944. It was his 80th birthday. We had a party that day, about 115 people, just all over the country come in. It was mostly just family. We could have probably been 500 if I would have invited the community that knows him. And then we had about 60 out of town fans, stadium club at the game. The entire stadium club saying happy birthday. That stadium club, has a lot of friends of mine from high school, a lot of families that he's, lived with his whole life, whether he's taught their kids, coached their kids, grown up with them. And then obviously to give the jersey and then do the coin toss was just, and the way the guys played, it was really special. I really appreciate it. It really added a lot to a really special weekend for our family. And, again, I can't say enough about when we have these moments and you pinch yourself, and he gets to kind of see the decades of so many people that work in the community to have Allianz Field be the way it is. It was really, really, really special weekend.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a cool moment to have him on the field and see him there in person and have him be celebrated by Minnesota United faithful. Moving on to our discussion, our preview for the weekend, Minnesota United hosting FC Dallas. As has been the note that many Loons fans have been keeping their eye on, Loons will be missing at least 9 players to international call-up. That's about 5,900 minutes played this season between them. While I think you had the note, Andy, that FC Dallas will have 2 players gone who have amounted to, 110 minutes? So clearly a very big disparity there, as only 4 games are being played across Major League Soccer during this international break. The Loons are easily far and away the hardest hit team in the league because of those, but that means you're playing well. That means your guys are playing well and getting the recognition that they deserve. So congratulations to all those guys. It'll be certainly a interesting weekend to see what kind of formation and players that Eric Ramsey goes with this weekend. Do we have any predictions of who's going to be able to start for the club this weekend, Andy?
I would expect, Jordan Adebayo-Smith and Patrick Way to be in the mix. Eric Ramsey mentioned those guys when he talked about how Tamu and Tanny are away. So I'd imagine, maybe it's Jordan Adebayo-Smith that starts maybe at the number 9, given the fact that he's come off the bench recently now that he's back from his ankle injury, and maybe Patrick is available off the bench. It'll be interesting to see where they go otherwise, right? I think you can have Sangbin and Bongi out wide, but maybe you need Sangbin on the back line. I think defensively is where the real issues are,
Mhm.
because you not only have, the international call-ups, but you're unlikely to have Mickey Tapias, who went to Mexico to get his U.S. green card appointments. And you have injuries there as well. DJ Taylor is going to miss the match with a hamstring injury. So you have issues at center back and issues at fullback or wing back. And I wonder, just given how many issues they have on the back line, does this mean they go back to a back four just because of a numbers issue, a numbers crunch? Does Sangbin maybe keep playing wing back? Does Caden Clark play wing back and play hurt with his toe injury? Is it a center back duo of Boxall and Padelford? I think there's a lot of questions out there of who some of the MNUFC 2 call-ups are going to be. I'd imagine there's going to be a couple defenders in the mix there, just given the numbers crunch that they have.
Manny, you said earlier that you're excited to see how the players respond. So let's discuss this. Who are you most excited to see step up, and who do you think will step up the most this weekend for the Loons?
Yeah, I'm really intrigued, by what just Andy said there. And I think one of the fun things about soccer is you've got this balance of thinking about who's going to start and then what system you're going to play, and then you could have a debate about what's more important, the 11 that start or the system. And I think this is a fascinating question, and I love and that Eric, has to think about both those questions, probably even more now because it doesn't have his full roster available. And he's got to kind of think, is the system more important, or is the 11 players I want to get out there more important, or do those actually connect? And what I mean by that is I feel like we've kind of played this 3-4-3 the last couple of weeks, and it's been very successful. It's shifted into a 5-4-1 at times. It's given us a nice balance of offense and defense. It's at times it's been a group that's gotten able to get in behind, like Kansas City last game. So for me, that's a big question in his mind as he's balancing towards, I really like this system we've done the last couple of weeks, or what, I got this 11 available and this might be a better system for this 11. So my brain goes to kind of that model. And then after that, I think Andy kind of alluded to it, the opportunity maybe for Caden, who was a late scratch with the toe, which is probably something he should be back for available this week. Sani is trying to get back in there and get coming back from an injury. So he's somebody that I think will be available and should be back. Is excited to see where he's coming. Jordan Ibel Smith is somebody who's had some minutes at the first team, has played a lot of minutes for the second team. He's somebody that could possibly get a chance in there. And then obviously, Bongi had a really good shift again last weekend. And so you really have some good options there, and I think Fraga's back. So I think he's got a chance of being in that mix too, maybe in the front three somehow. So again, I look at the adversity for Eric to solve and the opportunity for these guys that maybe if we didn't have the international break game like we do, which I don't love, I publicly say it, I think the league's got to get rid of having games on international weekends, full stop. I don't care how we do the schedule. We should not be playing these. At the same time, like a lot of things I don't like, we have to do. And ultimately for me, that creates an opportunity for some of these guys. And in a moment where we're playing really well at home, on paper, you could say another team like Kansas City that's really struggled. I don't think they've won a game away all year that we're going up against. So it's one of those ones where I'm excited for the adversity, particularly because how we were playing so well. I don't know if I'd be that way if we hadn't won last weekend, by the way. I think I'd probably be a little more crabby at the league. But I think considering how we played last weekend, I'm excited to see these guys play.
I'm right there with you on the fact that it is, for me, I think it's patently ridiculous that we're playing with this many guys out and that it's an international break. We shouldn't be playing this weekend. I think kind of reading into our pregame comments from Eric Ramsey that he had with us on the broadcast, he said it's an alien concept to him of playing during the international break, playing when he even pointed out that in the lower leagues in England, if you get 3 guys called up, your game's postponed. And the fact that they're not, it's just, for him, he said it was an alien concept. And I think for me, looking at that and how he's kind of handled press conferences and talking to the media and offering opinions on matters, I think that was one of the more telling comments from him this season, because he normally doesn't kind of go out there to criticize things. He usually holds his judgment until he can see things later. And him saying that was an alien concept, for me, that was a bit of a tone setter in that I I don't know. I don't think that this, as you said, Manny, I don't think this game should be played, but we are here, and the Loons will put out certainly a roster against a FC Dallas side that has struggled this season. As you said, they haven't won on the road this season. It's been tough for them. It's 2 games in their last 10 that they've won, and they are on a 4-match winless run, 2 losses in a row in LA. A number of guys just aren't stepping up for them. Jesus Ferreira, only 2 goals scored this season, 1.1 expected goals this season from him, as he's dropped back from kind of a number 9 back into that number 10 role behind Peter Musa, who's scored 5 goals, 2 assists this season for him, but it's still just not good enough from an FC Dallas side that I know that there was some expectations for them heading into the season, but they are really struggling this season, down in 12th place in the Western Conference, man. This is going to be tough for Minnesota, but if you're going to have this many guys out, it's good to come up against a side that has struggled mightily on the road.
Yeah, Andy, what do you think? What are your thoughts on Dallas?
They've been struggling. Obviously, Alan Velasco's injury, really hurts them.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Ferreira, obviously isn't getting called up to the U.S. because he's been playing so poorly. With Dallas, I think it's like Jonathan said, I think it's an opportunity given how much they've been struggling. And Eric talked about it this week about how they don't have much to lose, and it's kind of playing with house money a little bit, that you get an opportunity to see some guys be able to play. I think, given the fact that Tanny might be away for, not just this international window, but Copa America as well, I think you want to have a look at who's behind him once Teemu comes back. Obviously, the international break has benefited Teemu, given the fact that he scored a brace earlier this week. He really needed
Quick
those
brace
goals.
too.
What's that?
It was a quick brace too. He got on and scored
a
couple goals right after another.
Yeah, he desperately needed those. So, while international breaks can be hard for the club team, if a player's struggling and they're able to get some goals, I think that's really beneficial. I also think it's worth keeping in mind that in mid-March they had a bunch of internationals away and were off that weekend just based on what the scheduling was. So this might be kind of coming back around, and this is where they have to take their lumps. But I think I don't know a lot about what Dallas is struggling with. I'd love to hear what Manny has to say.
Yeah, no, I think in these situations, Dallas is, I think, have been playing like kind of a similar 3-4-3, which really becomes a 5-4-1. They've been sitting pretty deep. I think they're going to be set up to kind of defend deep and counter, which really is where the coach is trying to get that structure defensively first, and then seeing how they can sneak goals with Jesus Ferreira and Musa on the counterattack. Which means we've got to be ready to move the ball, to not lose the ball in bad spots, get numbers forward, but also if we don't finish plays off the right way, I think they're going to try to get after us. So always in these kind of games, set pieces are important for us. I think the team's been outstanding with that. We've embraced that. I definitely think when you have this many changes in the lineup, you sometimes can be susceptible defensively just because there's kind of new roles and new kind of mentality, just because the guys have been playing week in, week out, in terms of saying, hey, we're not going to give up any set piece goals, and so, but again, that's why it's nice to have Boxall not go on a national break and have him here. His leadership can be massive in a game like this where we have so many changes. It's great to have him back there. So, but listen, I think it's similar to Kansas City. We know we're going to be playing against a desperate team that's desperate to try to get a point to 3 on the road. And they'll probably try to make it frustrating one way or another, whether it's defensively sitting deep, or whether it's to try to disrupt the tempo of the game or the physicality of the game. I expect them to do something to create some adversity for us, and then I also expect just the adversity of us of having kind of a new group out there, trying to figure out how we are going to create patterns of play to create chances, while also kind of playing that great defensive work we've had. And I think you kind of alluded to it, Andy. That's really where I think things start with this team, is that back 3 that we've had have been so good game in and game out.
Yeah, certainly that back 3 is kind of given the Loons a nice stable base to build off of, and it'll certainly be put to the test this weekend. Loons attackers won't have, despite FC Dallas's poor defensive record, they won't have an easy challenge getting past Martin Paz. He's had, I think 15 saves in the last 2 games, 8 against LAFC, 7 against LA Galaxy. So he's a guy who's constantly under fire and having to kind of push away shots from the opposing attackers. But he's done an excellent job, at least over the past 2 games, of making big saves. Yeah, they had 3 against the LA Galaxy. They led in 3 against the LA Galaxy, but they held LAFC scoreless through, I think, first 70 minutes of that match until Denny Bouanga made an excellent run, and Mateusz Bagush kind of found him with an excellent weighted pass into him on that run for the lone goal in that match last Saturday against Dallas in that LAFC game in Los Angeles. So it'll be an interesting game, certainly for Minnesota, because of all those changes and how they play against a team that is really down on their luck this season. 17 goals scored, 24 against the season, a -7 goal differential, down in 12th place in the Western Conference. I know injuries have played a big part in where they are and how they played this season, but I don't think many people expected FC Dallas to struggle this much. Only a couple games this weekend, boys, to make some predictions on because of the international break. 4 games being played. So let's start off with our predictions. New England Revolution, Red Bulls, New York. This one in New England, Manny. You first.
Obviously, New England had a great win in Nashville. 1-1.
1-1. Andy?
I'm going to go with the Bleach Blonde duo, and they're going to get the win.
Yeah, I think I'm going with a win here for New York. 2-0 for me in this one. Sporting Kansas City at Seattle, 2 teams that have struggled this season for various different reasons. Seattle up in 10th place, Sporting Kansas City all the way down in last place in the Western Conference. This game in Kansas City this weekend. Andy, you go first here.
Seattle, just based on what we saw from the Kansas City team last weekend, I just don't see where they've generate the life and the goals to be able to get out of the funk. But, we've seen crazier things in this league, but, I think Seattle will get all 3.
Manny?
Yeah, I'm going with Seattle as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, I think it's a clean sweep here. Seattle on the road, just based off of, as you said, Andy, what we've seen from Sporting Kansas City hasn't been good. And it seems like that's a real big hill to climb out of for Peter Vermees and Sporting Kansas City this season. Then the other game being played this weekend, St. Louis City hosting Portland Timbers. This one should have some fireworks in it. There should be some goals scored after St. Louis put up 3 against Inter Miami last weekend. Portland looking to continue their bounce back this season after a poor run of form. Who do we expect to win this one, Manny?
I'm gonna go with St. Louis. I think that was kind of a big point on the road in Miami. Obviously, they would have liked all 3 when they have the lead, but I think they're gonna, they still have a really good home crowd, home atmosphere. I think they're gonna take the 3 points.
Andy?
I'm with Manny. I'm not a firm believer in Portland.
Yeah, I don't believe what I've seen from Portland. We'll see them later on again this season. But I like what St. Louis did last week. I know it's Inter Miami's defense, and that can be questionable at times, but going toe-to-toe with Inter Miami, having 3 leads, yes, giving 3 leads up, but still going toe-to-toe in Miami on the road, not an easy task. And that one might be kind of a Kickstarter for their season to jumpstart their season and get back into playoff contention. So I'm going to go Seattle or St. Louis here for that one. So that's been it for the match day preview. We've got Minnesota United hosting FC Dallas this weekend, 7:30 p.m. kickoff on MLS Season Pass, 7 p.m. pre-match show with Dan Terra and myself on 1500 ESPN and Sirius XM this weekend. Big call up there for the broadcast as well. Boys, we'll see you then, and we'll talk to you right back here next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Loons fans, make sure to tune in for that one and tune back in here for the match day preview. Thanks to our production staff of Grace Dearson, Kyle Hayward, and Evan Emmer putting this on this week. We'll talk to you next week, Loons fans.